Hello?
Hi, Kiran. Good morning.
Hey, good morning,
Hey,
everybody.
guys able to see me, hear me?
Yeah, I hope I'm visible.
Hey,
Yeah.
good morning. Good morning,
Because
everyone.
I
morning,
can't
sir.
see myself. So,
Could you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Just give us a few minutes. We'll
No
just
problem.
wait
No problem.
here.
Take your time. Take your time.
Am I audible, sir? Can anyone kindly let me know? Am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
Yes, ma'am. You're audible.
Okay, sure. So let's start with the AI summit, sir. So, good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to all the speakers and the participants to the AI summit. We're honored to have such distinguished speakers with us today share their valuable insights on the artificial intelligence. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you have an insightful session and engaging. Now, I would like to invite Snehashi sir to take the session forward. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Sohana. Uh, Thank you, everyone, for joining. Today, we have a great panelist with us. Giving a short intro for each one of them, we have Dr. Sriram Vasudevan. He is a AI generative leader, former Intel specialist. He's also a TEDx speaker and author of 50 plus books, holder of 14 patents. Thank you, Sriram, for joining us. We have Vivek George Koshi, who's a consultant at Accenture, and he has worked on various generative AI models and has been leading a large portfolio. Thank you, Vivek, for joining us. We have Kiran Gururaj. He's a seasoned delivery manager, part of various leadership roles, and he has had a vast experience in retail and supply chain and digital transformation. Thank you, Kiran, for joining.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Hemachandran. He's the director of AI Research Center at Vauxhall University, UNESCO. His expertise in today's environment of AI governance is very much vital. Thank you, Hemachandran, for joining us. We have Dr. Sankalp Khera, who is a PhD in computer science and currently an assistant professor. His areas of expertise include, uh, especially for GenAI in healthcare domain, which is now a domain which is gaining more and more importance. Thank you, Sankalp, for joining us. And we have Anuradha Parkela. She's also a TEDx speaker. She's one of the top voices in LinkedIn. She's CEO and CPO of Fleetronics and has been a leader in various other fields. Thank you, Anuradha, for joining us. So let us start the today's AI session. We have a eager audience with us. So let me start with Dr. Shriram sir. Today, in this world where we see that there are a lot of focus on the GenAI aspects, and there is a lot of solutions which are coming in respect to the GenAI. What do you think that in the latest trends, when it comes to the Gen AI in the future, especially many of the things which are getting created at a research level to the application in the industry level, which applications do you see would gain a lot of prominence in future? Shriram, is my voice audible? Okay, I think we might have lost him for a few minutes. Uh, let
I
me.
think he's there. It's just his audio's not working, I think.
Okay.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah,
Yes.
we can hear you
So
now.
probably my
Great.
headphones had a problem.
Okay.
Right. So what I was telling is, generative AI has been growing. The LLMs, the agentic, all these things have been growing tremendously for the recent few years. And I, being a teacher, fundamentally, though I'm in industry, I'm a teacher by heart, and I teach at various institutes and universities across. This has opened a lot of possibilities for students and young innovators. Most importantly, some promising directions, as you asked rightly. The AI learning assistants have been really nice to look into. I mentor a lot of students. Students started building, the innovators started building the AI tutors that explain the concepts in regional languages, and it also simplifies the complex topics. Most important thing is now with the evolution of AI PCs from Intel, from AMD, all these AI PCs are making things even more easier to develop these kind of applications locally at your PC. You are no more cloud dependent, you are no more internet dependent, and all these are really very interesting things. And on the other side, AI for local problem documentation is gaining a lot of momentum. Creative storytelling and education is another side. These creators use GenAI to create very interactive stories. Even I have a YouTube channel where I teach Indian stories with generative AI. I generate content with generative AI, and I take it forward with the children. So that's very interesting and easy to do. And above all this, some labs are definitely exploring the AI-based tools for accessibility, such as generating simplified instructions or voice-based systems. To me, what is more exciting is that the students are not just, or the innovators are not just using the AI tools, but they are beginning to integrate them into real-world problem solving. There is where I see a lot of focus and progress that's happening in this area. But nevertheless, I should not miss one point here. All these must carry the ethical line, which is always embedded to it. The explainability part of it should never be ignored. And nowadays, the observability is picking up well. Explainability, as you very well know, we should know how an answer is coming from these AI engines. Observability, I should be able to know what's happening inside at that point in time. So these part of it are to be really paid attention, and there is where I think we've got more future connected as well. And these are the lines where we can really connect it. But again, these agents, all those things, we need to put a step forward to see if they can be used for the situation that we are thinking. Not everywhere agents can come in. Though I'm an agentic leader, I'm working a lot with agentic products, all the things. I am not advocating agents for everything. We have to take a conscious step in terms of suggesting that, yeah, this is an agentic work, this is a non-agentic work. We should have clear clarity in that. That's my opinion, sir.
Thank you, Sriram. Actually, I was also seeing the fact that you're also involved with Atal Innovation Mission. I believe so.
Right.
So, yeah. And there, I believe it's the government initiative on the various aspects of the future modeling. So, in those areas, how do you see the traction in the GenAI? Means how many upcoming projects or something good that has come, which you believe that later on can be an Indian part of an Indian stack?
I'm pretty much impressed with this question. This is a good question to be asked as well. First thing is the ATL scheme, the Adult Tinkering Lab scheme, is for the schools. That too for the underprivileged schools, which do not have much of the facilities or infrastructure or even the teachers who are available full time there. So what we do is we go there on the weekends. So I'm an Atal regional mentor. So first you have to be a mentor, then you have to become a regional mentor of change. Only then you can get a little more schools connected to you and you will get privileges there. So what I've done is I used to go to schools in Trichy, Tanjavur, nearby regions because I'm native of those region. And I go there in the weekends and I start teaching them. I started this when IoT was at peak. I used to take sensors in hands. I used to show them how things can be controlled. These kids, right? Amazing kids. Only thing is they are not lucky enough. I would say lucky. They're not just lucky enough to get all these things every day. But during the weekends, they get through people like Atal mentors and other. There are many contributors, and it's just not Atal. So what happens is there when we show them the agents, when we show them the Gen AI, particularly the creative content generation, it excites them. So what kind of activities we give them there is very simple. I used to tell them, see, you have a story in mind, right? Work as a team and generate the images and convey the story through the images. So they get excited. So for them, seeing something really in their laptop coming up, and then if they are able to explain it nicely to people, that increases not only their technical affinity as well as on the other side of it, they are really, really very happy in terms of they being able to speak, they being able to present it nicely. There is where I see GenAI has brought in a lot of confidence. When they see things in front of them, they get excited. It's just like when you read a storybook without any diagrams, it doesn't work. The pictures without, it doesn't work at all. So now they see everything through pictures. My activities are like that. I give them a technical topic and they have to creatively generate a story around the topic after I explain them. Then they have to come and explain it in their mode. I mean, their own way of doing it. So I see a lot of future there. So these kids are amazingly using the GenAI, and though agents, all those things are too much very high term for adult schools at this point in time. In future, I believe that they can be also used for building a small chatbot kind of stuff where they can ask some small questions where it could happen in future. But currently, GenAI is really an eye opener. When you ask about Atal, yes, it's very close to it, very close to heart content for Atal and other initiatives. On the other side, I'm a parent of two kids where my first kid is doing his 8th standard. He is using GenAI to the best extent possible. All the presentations that he is readying, he is pushing it into Gemma or he's pushing it into other platforms to make it little better. And they are now talking about pitching. A 8th standard kid or 7th standard kid talking about the term pitching is made possible because of GenAI. I feel that this is the era where these kids are blessed with all this kind of content. So only thing is we need to monitor what they are doing. That's only concern I have. Because too much of things on their table, there is a chance that it can be slightly derailing. We need to monitor. There should be a watchdog.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Shriram. Thanks for the input. Hi, Anuradha. I'll just have a few queries from my side. Like, you have been part of an organization and you have been in the leadership role. So, and that too in a place or in a domain which is a fleet management. How do you think that in this particular area or in this particular generation, how is GenAI being able to solve the problems of the operation, especially when the operations we have the logistics, the last mile delivery, based upon which it's basically a make or break deal for us?
Thanks, Snehashish, for the introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm glad you asked that question because, to be honest, running operations is nothing less than a high-octane job. There is a lot of chaos, And, in operations, you don't have the leverage to wait for a perfect information or a perfect moment, because usually that would become like the most expensive decision one can make if you're waiting for the opportunity. So here in our startup that we are building, where we are working with a couple of Gen AI tools, we ideally would not like to work with a agentic chatbot. We consider Gen AI as an operational analyst. And it's very simple. When I say that, I come with experience of how most of my dashboards would fail, because it's like a buffet. Now everybody doesn't want to eat everything. They want to slice it down, and they want to have something which is impressive, at the same time something which is decision making for them. So my approach will start with decisions, how to train this model, but not totally only on data. So for us, we ask clients, what are the 5 action items that you want to take, you want to take away every day or every week. And if those are something that I can design the data in layers, I would initiate my team to work on that. So the most important outcomes are usually driven on cost, on service, on utilization, and in safety. Level 2 is usually the drivers. I mean, why did that outcome move, or what was the reason behind it? And the level 3 would be raw evidence, data, telematics, exceptions, and how do we use that like a tool to reproduce alerts, or to bring in notifications, or to make insightful decisions also for them. And this is very critical, because usually they don't want it after it's done, they want it while it's happening. So this is where I see Gen AI playing a very important role. It's not a chatbot who's answering my questions. It is more like an analyst who's giving me insights, who's showing me that this is where it's going wrong, this is where it could go wrong based on predictive history.
So if I have to ask in the same way, how difficult would it had been if GenAI would not have been there for you? Suppose everything now that you are getting is almost instantaneous, and the GenAI being not, if suppose if the GenAI would not have been there right now, or maybe let me phrase it in some other way, what are the more deep, the models that are there right now are very much not industry specific or specific function as specific. They are just generalized model as of now. So from your experience in this area of fleet management, what do you think that the next versions that are going to come? Because we are also speaking about very not big models, but small models, but which are very much domain specific. So in the area of the fleet management, what do you think? Like how, what is the next evolution of GenAI? Like which are the some few features or some few functionalities that should have been there that would make things easier, much more easier than that?
Interesting question, because operations existed even before GenAI was there.
Yes.
Operations existed even then. So what has changed now? The ease of doing business. The
Yes.
data that you have that can help you take some smart decisions. Insights that can give you strong foundations and fundamentals to prove that your operations are on the right track. So without GenAI, I would think basically it would be stuck on a scripted response. And I can tell you that since decades we are seeing a lot of these scripted responses coming first through telecallers, then moving into agents, and so on and so forth. So that would not create any differentiation for a customer who is investing in high-end telematics with us. So the core shift and the function which I can see, which can actually make a visible difference, is not the fleet optimization without being hallucinated or those flashy ERP tools. We are talking about um, something which is as simple as pure retrieval from those fixed data. And we are talking about large volumes, and we do like
Yes.
over what 5,000 trips in a day. So you can
Yes.
imagine in 5 years the numbers that we would have soared through. Now prototypes, AI queries, these are all something that we are not used to. We have only learned it as we have moved on the way.
Yeah.
So for us, the functionality differs from customer to customer. But what is the core? What is the core outcome that they are looking for here? I would say multimodal, something which is text, because there is a lot of content, which there's a lot of inputs that is given. Images are stored, e-way bills, challan orders. These have to be converted into visible, readable documents and videos. Video chunks are very important and they act as proof. Whether
Yes.
it's an accident, whether there is whether there is an instance, whether there is a theft. In fact, I can tell you, and I can cite an example, drivers change in the middle of the route, in the middle of the trip. And the innocent ones are always put to test and they are arrested versus the real ones who are theft, who are actually done, who've been involved in malpractice. So this has seen such a cross-model requirement in our systems. And this is something which every customer is asking. I need security for my freight. I need security for my fleet. So these are few areas which I feel GenAI can play a huge difference.
Yes. I can just imagine with the situation currently where there is a lot of disruptions in the fleet management because of the geopolitics, how important
Yes,
this has become.
absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Anurad. Thanks for your inputs. Thank you. I will next go on to Kiran Gururaj. Sir, thank you for joining and with your vast experience and holding various leadership roles. Uh, you have been part of a journey where can see that generative AI has been induced in various domains. So I'd like to know that how this do you see, like how this journey has started, like in view, like from banking to CPG to retail, what is the impact that it is currently making, and where do you see like the various organizations who are going to come now to India to create new solutions? If today, if you see this whole environment, how important is this GenAI to any specific industry? I would say, whether it's means you can take a call. Means I don't see any industry where they can probably miss out on GenAI.
Hey, thank you, Soshesh, and good morning to all. Am I able to see me and hear me? Okay.
Yes, we are able to see you.
Yeah. See, let me start with basic of GenAI, right? So there are two kind of GenAI. So whatever today we are talking about, or most of the people are used and well versed, and most of the industries are used, consumer focused GenAI. It is just like a dictionary. You have everything there. You need what you wanted. You can pull out from there. See, what industries are looking at now today is focused GenAI, the domain focused, right? Because I don't want today, I have a small problem in my business, my domain. It can be a banking, insurance, or it can be a this one, right? Retail or CPG. So if I have a specific, I wanted to go there because what happening currently is most of the AI engines are mixing every business together and they're providing some solutions, right? That is an area a lot of people are working. A lot of people are working on domain-focused Gen AI solutions today. That's a huge thing coming on. And whether Gen AI is impacting industry, it's heavily impacting. So that's going to be our next future in the industry, right? So by 27, 28, or up to 35, I see a lot of evolution is happening on that Gen AI part. And it is a huge, there is a huge impact on every industry, right? So before banking and other things, the major industry which is got impacted or major industry which is using Gen AI today is the marketing agency. Marketing is a function, right? It is across every industry. Even retail, you need marketing, CPGs, you need marketing, banking, you need marketing, insurance, you need marketing, or fleet management or aviation. Everywhere the marketing is key, right? So marketing is evaluating. See, because earlier we had a different kind of a marketing segments, right? So we were talking about a mass marketing or some segmented marketing. Today, the whole theory and whole thing is changing toward a segment of one, right? So that means personalized marketing is taken more space. And for personalized marketing, we need a big data analytics, Gen AI features, right? So that's going to be a huge opportunity. There are dynamic pricing, what we do, usage-based insurance, right? And personalized selling. So all these things are the key areas where the Gen AI is impacting heavily, right? So if I say in retail today, right? Retail, yeah, it is not having a great time as earlier because there are major competitors around and major chains are around, and then with e-commerce hitting them hard, right? So what retailer can use the Gen AI is currently they're just using it for just marketing purpose, right? Generating some content, generating some ad materials, generating how do I do it and other things. But what industry is currently working, there's a lot of industries working behind the screen because it is not yet visible to the outside world, is on promotion optimization, pricing architecture, personalized pricing, demand-based pricing, right? So you all know that Uber is already put this one on in US market already, right? It's on a demand-based pricing, right? So you are booking an Uber, and if your battery is 8% in your phone, right, it automatically price will hike. They'll add around 10 to 15% surcharge because you are desperate to get a cab before your battery dry out, right? So that is urgency based or wealth based. There are multiple areas of segmenting the people. So there is a lot of work need to be done. So that is the one area I see the Gen AI can impact the every industry, and it is impacting, and a lot of people are working on that, and a lot of opportunities are getting created with that, right? And the second area I see is mainly with banking, right? In the banking, see, what is the purpose of banks or any financial institution? To lend the money, right? Because that's where they make the money, right? If you give a loan, they get interest and they make the money. Otherwise, just having an FD, that means you have to give money back to the consumer, right? So that
Yeah.
lend the money. So today we have a lot of restriction of lending the money. You have to go through the CIBIL score, credit scoring. Credit scoring is having its own architecture of calculating. We use a PICO model, right? Frank Isaac Corporation, right? So that created a credit scoring model. So we are still using that model. But today the world is changing. I see credit score is only 15% people have the credit score in India. That means the banks are leaving out 85% of the population. That's the consumer base. It's a huge market, right? So there are a lot of work, a lot of companies started working on the other side of this. How do I create a parallel credit scoring system using the customer's behavior or sentimental or demographic or their social activity, using all this data? There's a lot of big data analytics going on that part also, right? There is a parallel credit system is expected to come by end of somewhere in 2027 or 28, right? So which is going to give people, because there are a lot of first time uh, uh, because they may not have a credit history, they are just first time job guys or they started a new business. So that is where is another area that GenAI can impact, right? So retail CPG, yes, there's a lot of work on that. A lot of work need to be done because CPGs are bleeding, right? No product companies are making a huge profit like earlier, right?
Yes.
So they have a lot of companies are just surviving today, including Unilever and all those major players are just surviving in the market today. So that's where we see a lot of GCCs are getting moved into India, right?
Yeah.
So see, I was talking to a couple of CPG heads and CPG guys in last 2 3 months. So why this movement and what is the advantage they get apart from the cost advantage? One is that everybody says if I move it to India, the cost will reduce and other thing. But to be frank, it is not that much. Hardly they see 5 to 10% the cost differences because the training, then the resource, the productivity, everything counts to them,
Hmm.
right? The major reason a lot of people are coming up here is because of the unbiasedness of the consumer patterns, right? I can set up the same GCC to do analytics in US, where US people know how what is the consumer pattern there. So most of the time when they are decoding the data, building the models, or building an AI rack systems and other things, they are most biased. But when it moves to an Indian country or a third world country, their uh, behavioral pattern is completely different compared to a shop, the patterns. So that means they just concentrate on the data, what it is saying, instead of going on to what my mind is saying, right? That
Great.
is a huge advantage. And there is a lot of GCCs are entering into India now, and it is expected in next 1.5 year, we'll have at least another 5,000 companies or mid-size and long-size companies are going to come to India, and you have a lot of opportunity coming up over there, the
Okay.
GenAI.
Just a follow on to this one. Since you said that there might be a lot of domain specific models that are going to come up, which I also believe which is specialized in that particular area. And I believe that they also need to be very small. They can't be that big for the deployment purposes and it becomes a problem. So, is this a trend that you will feel that okay, this is going to dominate the next particular set of uh, years to come, maybe 2 3 years, where uh, like this domain specific models and model is one thing, but the data, having that data to be able to create that, to be able to securely store that, that is one more challenge.
Right.
In today's system. Means many people are not willing to give the cloud.
Oh,
How do you see in the future things that stack getting built up in India,
right.
where
So,
the smaller models and the data?
right. So I don't call it a smaller model. It's a quite a huge model it's going to build because a lot of
Okay.
companies, yeah, you are right that a lot of people had that data is their asset. If I give up my data, my competitor will know my business. There are data security and other things. But I think today's management, the executive management, wherever I am speaking to, including Albertsons, Kroger, and all those people, right? They don't believe in that. So the people are changing because today's retailers are started selling the data to the CPGs. For retailers, that is an additional revenue model, right? So what is selling? Who is
Yes.
your competitor performing? What is his business plan? What is his promotion plan? How much he is bleeding? Everything data from retailer is going back to the CPGs today, right? So
Great.
data monetization, what we call it as additional revenue stream for retailer. So on my data security has come down drastically. I see still in third world countries, this is an issue. There are people doesn't want to share data because even when I was talking to a couple of retail chains on India, and they were thinking that they wanted their own billing system. They don't wanted to put it on cloud because they see if I put it on a shared
Yes.
cloud or a SaaS model, other people will see my data and they know what I'm doing. But in
Yes.
the first world economy, I don't see that happening. The people are ready to share the data, right? There are companies which is working across retailers or across CPGs to build a models behind that, right? The trade promotional models or promotion optimization models or even that inventory to supply to demand to supply models. There are a lot of things are happening, right? And everybody shares the same customer database, right? So everybody is, instead of reinventing that who is my customer one, customer two, and other things. So let's start using that. That's where the GenAI is coming into a picture. So we were talking about a huge GenAI models like whatever we have used with OpenAI and all those things, which is a very huge model because it's like the encyclopedia, right? But when I talk about these models is specific to a retailer, right? And I think data is available today in all the data centers, and a lot of things have been masked because there are data governance rules are there. As per that, the data is masked before getting onto anything. And there are a lot of AI work is already happening on that. So these models will be built in India. Most of the models are getting built in India today. That's where the GCs are coming because the main purpose of GCCs for all the CPG companies or retail companies are starting up in India is nothing to do on their business process and other thing because they know Indian business process is completely different to their world, right? So the major reason they are coming up here is to build this analytical models. And
Yes.
they are the people here is core technical. They just look at the data, they understand the basic concepts of retail, but they don't understand the business patterns and other things, so that they talk what data is talking, unbiased version of that.
Yes. Yes. So thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Kevin, for sharing your inputs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me go on to Dr. Himachandran, sir. As you can see that everyone is excited, and you are on the AI governance and the AI ethical aspect. I would like to know your inputs on when everyone is looking for AI, agentic AI adoption. What are the safeguards or guardrails that you would like to have in a model? Because you see, it's just not the industries, as one of our panelists said. Even the family members are now using GenAI for their own purpose. In fact, people are actually interacting as chatbot. Small kids are interacting with chatbots with various generative AI models. So, what are the safeguards when a model gets developed? Do you think that it should be there, especially in today's world?
Yeah, thank you for this wonderful opportunity. And see, I have to point out two things here. Recently in IIT Madras, they done a research and they found that around a lot of AI startups are getting failed because they are not properly maintaining the governance. The governance in sense, I'll tell you what are the things. This is one thing which I want to say. Coming to the second thing is, I give one example. Now, there is a company which they worked on resume shortlister. Okay. Now, many of the companies are using it. For example, in my university itself, we developed our own resume shortlister, especially like when we need assistant professor, associate professor, or professor cadre in various departments. So what we do is like we develop a kind of a model where based on number of years of experience, what kind of additional certifications they have, and what are the subjects they taught, and how much experience are there, any awards they got, or what kind of a teaching experience, any industry experience. So a lot of criteria are there. So based on that we will scrutinize and we do it. But suppose in my university if I get around 500 CVs, if I want to shortlist one by one, for me almost 2 days will go off. But if I use a kind of an app where if I want to do this, I can get the things done in kind of 10 minutes. It will shortlist and give it to me that these are the profiles that are shortlisted for assistant, associate, and professor cadre. But the problem is now when I build this kind of thing in 2025, that time I've been trained with some kind of a data what I which need to be trained on it so that it will give us the kind of a accuracy. Now might be as per the NEP policy or a kind of a new UGC things where a lot of changes might have happened. Now, if I use the same model to shortlist those CVs and if I recruit, that is not appropriate because the model is not validated again. The model is not updated. It's completely showing a bias. This is one of the example. Second thing, coming to the healthcare, if I build a model for a disease diagnosis and with the data with the help of chest x-rays or whatever maybe if I'm doing for that, and then the model get trained and I can predict it now. But COVID has happened in 2020, and now if we are doing that kind of a scenario, might be a lot of changes might have happened in that kind of the disease a kind of malfunctioning or something which we can say that. So in that case, how we can do it? So to avoid all those kind of bias and avoiding a kind of um, uh, fake predictioning, those kind of things. So three things are very important in it. One is traceability, accountability, and then continuous monitoring. The traceability is nothing but like when we do a kind of a prediction, we need to understand that how it is predicted. How because now using no code, everyone is building a chatbots or whatever maybe, but they don't know how doesn't work. If something sometimes error comes, they don't know how to fix that error also. For that also they use the chat GPT for that, fix the error. But ultimately people has to understand that how the data has been fetched and how the data has been accessed and how it predicted. That is very important to understand that. Coming to the second thing is accountability. Even the AI prediction has been done as a human intervention is very important in that, where the human has to finalize the
Human in the
prediction.
loop.
Yeah, if the human is not in the loop, then ultimately it's going to be the disaster. So human and machine interaction is must to avoid all those things. Coming to the third, continuous monitoring. Yes, every 6 months once, like how in universities every year the UGC and AICT and NAC are coming for the accreditation. The same way, in any organization, if they are using AI, it has to be monitored and should be validated with the data, with the accuracy, and all those things. Every 3 months or 6 months once, it has to be done because AI is fast growing. No one can stop it. And even in research, a lot of people are using AI to do it. Previously, everyone used Turnitin to find that how much AI plagiarism is there. Nowadays, no one is using because the all research journals, everything is accepting the AI publications, but you have to give the declaration over there that for what you used AI, whether to for grammatical check, for making the structure format, those kind of things. But ultimately, they are looking into whether the idea and the framework, what the methodology you used to write the papers, that intellectual property must be owned by the human but you can use AI to make it a structure for the grammatical, for the flow, everything can be used. So this is what happening. We cannot stop using AI across any time, but we need to adapt to it. But we have to maintain some certain frameworks or certain governance need to be done in every sector. It has to be done. And even if you see that in India we have DPDP, in Europe we have GDPR. So each country have different frameworks. But even in India, we have DPDP. But if you build any kind of any model, no one is going to ask you that what framework you used. That is what. That is
Yes.
not in India. No, in none of the countries they didn't made it as mandatory. To everyone should follow this kind of a framework. This has to be done. That has to be done. So if people are taking it serious, they have to make it this as a mandatory, and this has to be. There should be a kind of accreditation body or someone has to do the validation. That's the reason that we have this ethics officer, the governance policy, all those things are coming into the picture. Yeah.
Great. Actually, thanks for the input. Actually, I was also thinking on this particular point that people now are creating models, but they don't understand or what it is. Even for a small mistake, if there is something, they will again go to the chat GPT and tell that, okay, this is an error, correct it to me and give it back. Because I was having a similar experience like that. Um, just continuing with this discussion, I was also thinking on the point that is the generative AI models making your work easier when it comes to checking the AI governance? Is there something in work like that?
Yeah. Can you come up with one more time? I just missed out.
Yeah, like instead of the regular governance that we do when the people come and they check all the parameters, uh, I was just thinking whether can this part be done by is there any scope of this part being done by a generative AI model, whether they can help the
Yeah.
governance people to actually make a call.
There are some companies already started working on it. For example, if
Yeah.
I am for example, we are using a laptop, right? In laptop, we have a lot of softwares we have been installed and we've been using it. Now, if Windows is giving a kind of a patch, now if you install that Windows patch, automatically some of the apps will not work. So now the industries have started working on it. Now, if a new patch is coming, whether if I install this patch, whether any system or any app will get affected or not. So to avoid those things, what kind of framework and how we can use AI to identify those things? See, for identify those things, and then we can come to a conclusion. If I install, then it doesn't work, so automatically it will discard it. This is what the research is currently happening
Mm.
across the globe, and people are working on those things. Yeah.
So this is actually great. That means we have opportunities at the creation level.
Yeah, and also if you see that even though in that case where the human intervention is very important because the human has to validate that whether to go with that or not. That is what important, where it will not AI will not automatically detect it and it will avoid it. The same thing. And also now in cybersecurity also, I'm not a cybersecurity person, but here that now AI is also been ruling the sector, and then now they feel like now their jobs also will go ruined off because of AI, because automatically AI is detecting the malware and it's automatically avoiding it, and how to overcome from that, those kind of things are happening it. But things will go on, but how we are going to handle the situation is only by updating our skills and upgrading our knowledge. Then how it works, how automatically it has been doing it, that if we understand only, we can give a kind of a solution for the kind of a problem which has been occurring by the AI. That needs to be done. For that, basic foundations on mathematics, all those things are very important in learning this kind of AI concepts.
Great input and why it's important means there is you have to use it either this way or the other.
Yeah.
You have to. Thanks, Dr. Himachandra. Thank you. Uh, our next speaker, Dr. Sankalp Kera. He's been part of the healthcare domain and he's been very actively working on the healthcare. Uh, Dr. Sankalp, as you know, that healthcare is many industry leaders are making
Mr. Biswas, actually, there was some connection problem. I think I couldn't hear you properly, like the question.
yeah, sure. So, thank you for joining, firstly. And I'd like to know, like, I have seen like your work in healthcare domain has been extensive. So, I'd like to know the inputs. Like nowadays, a lot of industry statements or industry leaders are making the statement that it is going to be transformative. The impact of
Mm.
generative AI in healthcare
Mm.
domain. Okay. So, what is your take on that? How do you see the landscape overall changing
So your voice is again breaking in
in
between.
terms of
So,
usage of?
so could you repeat the last part of the
Okay.
question, please?
Yeah. How do you see the landscape of healthcare domain changing with respect to Gen AI implementation?
Right. So, first of all, good morning to everyone, and thank you so much for this platform. It's an honor to be a part of the panel with such eminent speakers from the industry. And before I jump on to the answer to the question, I would really like to point out to this thing that it's not Dr. Sankalp, it's just Sankalp. I am currently pursuing a PhD. So, yeah. And as rightly asked by Sir, so first of all, I think one needs to understand AI. It's artificial, right? And it's man-made. So there comes a problem of trustworthiness. And especially in a field like healthcare, uh, or maybe fields like finance or law, legal things, in these areas, what happens? We do have models, we do have data, but is it actually reliable? A lot of gossip is being happening about hallucinations produced by all these models. So are these the outputs that are being coming out of the LLMs or the AI models, are they actually reliable? So if you understand the word artificial, so very clearly it's a human tendency not to trust the other human. So how can we actually trust the output of a model that has been created by human, right? So in healthcare, what happens? We can use it. We definitely use it for different purposes, like from very small tasks like uh, clinic management, appointments management, and everything, to major like prediction of diseases, working in cancers, working in Alzheimer's or neurodegenerative disorders or deadly disease. So my take on this would be yes, one we should be using generative AI, as we cannot avoid that part, but it should be limited. And as the other speakers rightly said, governance is very, very important for this thing. It should be human should always be in the loop, because hallucinations can create a mess at any point of time, right? And if we are working on some disease, like as suppose I want to predict some cancer thing, uh, so in the scans, if something is not visible to the human eye, to the radiologist or to the other experts, then in that case, yes, computer vision models or AI models would be a great help. But suppose if somebody is not having that particular disease, or it's a miscalculation by the AI model, so in that case, that would be a problem leading to some results. So human intervention is very, very important. Human observation is very important in this case. So my take is this one, this thing only. AI should be used, but as a support system. It is a support. Sorry, it helps in decision making, but effective decision making, but also a support. One should not be completely reliable on it, and it cannot be it cannot replace the human. When we say that would AI lead to taking of the jobs and people would be unemployed, but it is also creating some new roles. So AI, if we use AI, any sort of AI as a support, then yes, it's an add-on, and because the collaboration of AI with humans is a great thing. But if we just put AI completely responsible for one thing, then yes, that would lead to a disaster.
Okay, thanks, Sankalp. I was also thinking on the fact that, especially in the India's environment or in countries where the logistics is a lot of problem, we the last mile, making sure the health services reach the last people. Uh, I think GenAI is going to play a major role in that, because nowadays, if you see, uh, for example, in a country like India, there are many places where the best of the doctors are not available in those places. Yeah. So there, if you see, the GenAI might be, uh, how do you think that the GenAI in those particular scenarios might impact, especially people where accessibility is less, or even the current scenario, if you see in the Middle East, where there is problems of logistics or people getting out, having a hand-on um, healthcare system or app, whatever you believe, how do you see this is whether this is a possibility, and how do the people trust that? Most importantly, it is they're dealing with their life. The calls that they're going to make is going to affect their life. So what's your take on this?
Right. So like there are multiple factors in this particular scenario that you have asked actually. So if we talk about some rural areas, let's say, so in that case, what we should focus more on is the literacy part. That the people should know that these sort of things exist. Like the doctors are right available, or not even just the doctors, like uh, okay, applications like ChatGPT and LLMs, they are available. They are right there in order to diagnose smaller disease. Of course, not much bigger ones, but yes, smaller like fever, or let's say common cough and cold that actually leads to something bigger. So these things are available. So if we talk about rural areas, then they should be aware. Marketing should happen in such a way that people are more aware of these things. In that case, generative AI will play a very vital role in order to diagnose and get rid of that particular disease or some effect very urgently. And let's say in case of what's happening right now in the Middle East, uh, a lot of people are harmed over there. So right at the call of some words, right after some text or a call, they are aware that okay, doctors are available, because in that situation they cannot go out and visit a doctor actually if they are harmed, right? So during a video call, and if we in the video call, if we employ models like video analysis of the, maybe let's say a wound is there, so the model would be able to actually grasp what's wrong or what has happened, and accordingly it can prescribe. Or even if the doctor is not available just for a face-to-face call, then in that case also these AI models or these agents can actually surf up the internet and actually come up with something fruitful, of course, after proper due diligence of these sorry, due diligence of these applications. Something fruitful can come up, right? So I think more critical part is awareness, that people are aware that these things are existing and they can look up for possible solutions using these generative AI applications, or maybe a doctor, or maybe let's say if I'm talking to uh, so sorry, if I'm talking to somebody across the screen, and if that somebody is not actually a real person, that's just a character of a doctor, right? So over there, the human who has been harmed would be actually satisfied that okay, he or she is talking to a human and it is able to actually solve the problem, listen to the person, and is able to provide a possible solution that might help him or her. So yes, generative AI would play a vital role in these situations, definitely, where it's not possible for the people, actual people, to go out and visit the doctors and get rid of whatever they are suffering from.
Thanks for input, Sankalp. I think this area too will have a very much transformative part in the. It's almost like having a handy person with you every
Yeah.
time.
Yes, 20%. And but only I think if the deployment has been happened after a very due diligence part and as sir rightly said about the uh, governance part. So trust will come from those things. And if we look at so I was
Right.
looking at a press release from the AI Impact Summit. So there was a discussion about India, like Sahi, there's an application Sahi, that their strategy for AI in healthcare. So the Indian government is looking forward to, and they are actually creating their own benchmarks for data validation, for model validation and testing. So India as a country is really working in the side of AI healthcare, making the platforms available for all the common people actually.
Oh, thanks, Uncle. Thanks for input. So we'll we just go on to Vivek George. Vivek, as you know, that everyone is looking forward to AI implementation for both the cases, for implementing the solution and also to verify whether the solution meets the respective standard or not. This is the part where it's the toughest. That is, how do you create a production grade reality of this full pipeline? It can't be just a model, it has to be the full pipeline. So, what is your thought process on this, right? If someone has to implement a generative AI model, what are the key components as a technology stack that he or she should be aware of?
Right. Thank you for having me. From this perspective, at least on creating models, I think there is a very standard technology answer everyone will give you. You can go to GitHub, you can clone repos, you can just create agents that will do things for you. Everything works. But if you're solving a business problem, your ideal starting point should be your evaluation. It is to know what are we actually measuring. I think it always starts from that. So if I am making an AI agent, let's say to figure out was this person wearing a safety hat before he entered the robotic line, or whether this person doing it at my home, is this person entering my dad or mom? Everything should start from that evaluation. That I think is the fundamental part. So whenever we subject any models, it's to first have an evaluation in place so that no matter what kind of pipeline I put in, I still know at the end of the day, I can run 5 or 6 tests to it. And I know, okay, does this model perform? Does this model perform tomorrow when the data has changed? Does this model perform when the model has changed? You know, these are the fundamental aspects that we look at. In an enterprise setting, though, this entire creating a model chain is very structured right now. I mean, we will say exactly what we need and things like that. But the most fundamental part is, at least in most industries, at least that I am aware of and the places that I work with, no one uses these as completely autonomous things. Like agents is a very overused word. Everyone will say we are using agentic AI agents. What are agents? There's no consensus. Everyone has their own definitions for it, right? So in the end, agents are something what we look at is as co-pilots. It'll enhance my productivity. It'll enhance a team's productivity. That's what we are looking at. We do not rely on agents which say that, hey, just go do this thing, complete it and come out. I trust whatever you did. No, that does not work on the industry. We have actually had cases like in production, like You try to deploy these models, and this is where the cost will also show up very soon. You
Yes.
create two agents which will do, let's say, an orchestrator agent. Orchestrator agent will say, okay, you validator agent, do this. Okay, you researcher agent, do this. You come up after a week, you'll see suddenly all the costs spike up. Why? Because two agents were talking to each other and they never stopped. So giving autonomy to agents, it's a very complicated aspect. So that is something that I think there are a few more years. I'm not saying it will not happen. Maybe in another year or two, maybe it might come there, but we're not there yet. We are having full control of the agents. Agents does a task for us. I verify, validate, build on top of it, and then deliver. So that's the entire pipeline. Like, so for this stage also, like, there's too much data. I can't validate everything. Is my model doing this or that? So I need to have a set of evaluation things for myself. I'll have a set of questions and answers. I'll be like, all right, every time when I do this, is the answers close to what I'm getting? Is it grounded to what are the information that was provided? Again, I think I can keep talking a lot on this, but one very crucial aspect also, though while we talk about agents and everything, the critical piece still here is how do we retrieve information? Let's not talk about enterprises and things like that. Let's say that you have, let's say you are students also, right? You guys have a lot of documents. You have like your birth certificate, this Aadhaar card, and that thing. If you ask an agent, all right, tell me my Aadhaar number. The problem is still on how do you take that document, how do you extract the information and give it to the LLM, so the LLM will talk back to you. So that information retrieval piece is still not something that's amazing, great. It's still in a lot of research is going on, and that will still be better. So how good can you retrieve your information from whatever data you have? That better your LLM agent will be. I think I added a little more points from your initial question, but I hope that answers.
Yes. I can totally relate that because there will be a lot of restrictions while retrieving the data. Also, means people might not be so much open, or they will have to follow a process. But just taking this a little bit to little bit ahead, we might have few people in our audience who might be architects in their own way, but they might not be exposed to generative AI solutions being part of their uh, mm, what to say, whatever solutions that they are building right now. They have not brought the intelligence in their solution right now. So uh, for them, how do you think that they can approach, or they can input the intelligence part in their current architecture or their current pipeline? At least what are the minimum basics that they can do, which can help them in uh, whatever the current operations or architectures that they have built up? It can help them in their own work.
Right. I think this will be closer also to my similar argument that I gave before, is like we need to have a strong problem. Like if there is an architect who is trying to build something, if he wants to add intelligence, that means there is a problem. There is some lack of intelligence somewhere where he wants to embed that. So first is that he needs to isolate that problem. Why does he want extra intelligence there? That's one part. But let's say, okay, there's a solution architect. He keeps getting a lot of these architectural requirements. Like let's make this particular product or that. How can he include in this thing? So there are two ways that I look at it. One is this again. I'll probably give it as an anecdote. You can definitely talk to like what your chat GPT. Talk to it like a real person. Don't look at answers, but look at it as a thought partner. Just go to it and say, hey, I'm looking at this problem and stuff like this. I am thinking this. What are your points against? Then you talk to it, you go back, no, I think this is the thing. Keep having it a conversation like a normal person would, because I think that's how you get more ideas and you also think of better ways. Whatever ways that we have of talking to LLMs should not be just a I give a question, I get an answer, and that's it. It has to be a back and forth throughout. That iteration helps. That is one way in professionally how you can use. Let's say that you want to actually create the architecture. I want to embed that entire LLM or intelligence there. Um, there are standard procedures to do it. I mean, like you can, let's say, in a very basic example, just use Claude Code. I mean, you'll have enterprise version or cursor. You create some set of rules. You always say that whenever I create an architecture, I need these specific standards for my API. I need these specific standards for my front end. I need these specific standards for my DB. You cannot deviate from that. That creating that rules is a very important thing, and that's closer to the evaluation. That is the main place it can embed. Again, a very important caveat here is we are seeing an increasing technical debt of the models. Like we are just going to the model and saying, hey, create this, and it is doing. We are facing a lot of technical debt. It will be using some library version we have never used. It's using some library we have never heard. It will be doing all of that. That will still increase. But what we cannot let out is cognitive debt. We cannot let the LLMs take a decision for us. It can do some implementation thing, but not some decision, which is when I mean cognitive debt, I mean, I want to create an architecture and I want these APIs to always, let's say, give specific format answers or answers which validate this first. That decision, the LLM should not take. That decision is still mine. Because at the end of the day, the architecture is being shown to another person as my result, not the LLM's results. So we can include it in the process, but the cognitive requirements, the business requirements, the evaluation, the core fundamental understanding of why we are doing this has to still be the architects. He can just make the process quicker.
Great, great. So my last query on this one, if someone is looking to venture into this area of generative AI, what are the basic tools that you would suggest that he should at least have a look around, or he should know those things?
Yeah. This is a very good question, and I think like if you are out of this college and things like that, please try to get access to all the tools you can. If you get Gemini free from your colleges, please use that. If you get Claude Code, if you can do Claude, it's a very wonderful model. It's a little different. You can use that. Use ChatGPT Go, it's free. But what I would like all of y'all to means probably focus upon is use as much of LLMs as much as possible. I know there are safety risks. You might leave a little bit of your technical side out because you'll be depending on it. But at a very fundamental level, you also will realize once you use all of these tools is what it's good at and what it's not good at. And you will not figure out what it's not good at until you use it. No, no tutorial is going to tell you that. When you use it for your real life problems, what I'll suggest is just take your home problems. Maybe your parents have an issue, like they want to find a document you had taken a photo long time back. It cannot do that. Just install Codex on your laptop. Just give it access to your laptop and say, hey, all my documents are here. Just extract all of this or structure it in a good way so that I can go figure out what I need, or create a database so I can just open a web app and see that. Do basic things, but try to use it as much as possible. Use it on your daily life. Try to schedule up a calendar for yourself. I mean, if you go to ChatGPT, I think you get it for like 300 per month. It's pretty cheap. Even if you want cheaper ones with Cloud Code, I mean, I don't know how many of you are CS students, so this might be too technical, but there are models like Kimi and things. They provide like probably $1 a month. You can use Cloud Code and other harness tools. You just put it up in your computer and you just work on with this. Solve your problems. Do like even now when I get a problem and my computer screen is flickering, I just go to Codex and I'm like, hey, my computer screen is flickering. Figure out a way. I just leave it. I mean, I know it might do something wrong. It might change some settings, but I'll know at the end of the day. And next time I can say, hey, I know you're not good at this, so just do this much for me. Just figure out what the issue is. I will change the settings. So keep starting to use these LLMs because trust me, I mean, like there are a lot of experienced people here, but the way you will use the LLMs because you are just starting your career in using it, you will use it way differently than how we are using it. And that is a huge requirement for the industry also, because we need to see more creative ways of applications of this. So keep using it way more. I mean, it might not work, but keep doing more on it. The models are going to get better. The tools are going to get better. You will also get better. So next time when you go to an interview and someone says, oh, you're just going to use this ChatGPT to solve your problem, you can confidently say, I'll use ChatGPT to run this program, but I will give you the guarantee that this will work. That should be your skills, right? So that's what I'll suggest. There are a lot of tools. I can probably send some links, but yeah, on whole, this works.
Yeah, great, great. Thanks.
Snehashish,
Thanks.
just a second. I would just like to add one more minute to this last question, if I'm allowed to.
Sure. Please.
So I've been authoring a book on agentic AI right now, which has GenAI content. So how I have structured it, because this is for the students who just come out of the college and they are kind of blind right now to, I mean, it's problem of plenty right now. They do not know what to
Yes.
pick. So I started it this way. So I started it with the programming and the core environment, the tools that they can use to build and run AI systems. That's the first thing that I went into. Then I spoke about the foundation models. So I write about the LLM platforms, the OpenAI, the Anthropic, the Metalama, all these things will come into picture there. Then I migrated slowly into the frameworks for building GenAI apps like the LangChain, the Llama Index, all these things I introduced, and the use cases were slowly pulled in into that, where the chatbots, rack systems, all these things were into picture. Then I migrated at the fourth level. I made it at the fourth stage in the book where agentic AI frameworks only then came, because all the above learnings will enable AI agents which can plan, reason, and use tools. Then I went in into the vector databases, which is memory for AI again, and embedding and model optimization I spoke about. And finally, I spoke about the hosting and deployment. Without missing the observability and prompt engineering, we covered this. So this is the schedule that I can give you in terms of how do we learn it completely. And it's a step-by-step process. Say, for example, if you're an engineering student into third year right now who want to really start with this, I think this step-by-step process would be really helpful. Other experts here can comment on it, but this is what I have put in into the book as well, which was well appreciated by the industry users as well as from the academia.
Yeah, no, thanks, Sridham. I think it really shows that there are steps, like how you took each
Right.
one of them one by one. That is how they
There
did
is a
their
clear
job.
roadmap available which we can follow.
Yeah, and they have a problem of plenty nowadays.
Absolutely.
Too many things are coming up, and they need to know where
Absolutely.
the limitations are.
True.
So we have just 10 minutes right now. So what we have few questions from our participants. I'll give it. I'll hand it over to Suhana. But before that, thank you for all the speakers for giving us your time, for giving us your inputs. It was really helpful. And most importantly, we are getting this at the time when people are starting up. Many people would get these inputs later on, and by that period of time they would have already committed and then to unlearn and learn again. So thank you everyone for giving us your inputs. And over to Suhana, you can share the queries that various users have with our panel.
Thank you everyone for the very insightful discussion. We'll now proceed with a few questions from the audience. We will begin with the first question from the audience, which is directed to Mr. Vivek Koshi, sir. Many companies are experimenting with AI today. From your experience, what is the first practical AI use case organization should start with to see real value?
I would suggest again, like, look at it at places where your skills can be complemented. So in industries, at least, let's say when I started in 2023, when all the LLM hype started, easiest unlock was just understanding where your data is, because there's a lot of them. How do you get these specific insights that you want? That's one. Second is, lot of industries require on us making decisions, right? We need to look at the data and make decisions. Now, these dashboards usually used to be like, there is like 10-member team who has created this dashboard saying, okay, we'll place this chart here, this chart here, this chart here, this chart here. Now it's completely changed. I can make dashboards instantly, right? I can quickly just say, okay, give me a dashboard which shows me how many users are coming in, how many signups happen, put it in the three-page screen. I can take quick decisions. So rapid prototyping on almost any aspect and analyzing your data, I think, are the quickest unlocks, because you go to any enterprises right now, you search for something, you will still not get an amazing result even now. So these are the two clear areas where you can start off.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the valuable insights.
So on behalf of the audience, I would like to direct a question to entire panel. Many AI demos look impressive, but why do organizations struggle when moving from prototype to production AI systems?
This is a very, very, very common question. And in fact, the question that everybody faces is this. And the prototype is built with limited expectations. And most importantly, you do not know what exactly waits there in the real world. The moment you push it to the real world interactions, it's going to be tougher. It's like a movie's trailer in the complete movie. Movie trailer might be really good and we all will be excited. 25 million views in 10 seconds, 20 seconds. All this hype can happen. But once the movie is released, it will be a flop. So understanding what exactly is the expectation and then building it as an end user expectation met product and the solution could be really, really handy. And the kind of usage that the end user uses it is entirely different from the kind of way the tester or the one who builds it uses it, because it's my baby. When I build it, my baby will be kept so carefully without any harm and I won't trouble that baby. So that intention is there in any software personality's mind. Being it's also me. When I build some solution beyond certain ability, I may not be able to think. Maybe Vivek will also agree to it. So we all are stuck into this what to say, unending loop of we testing our product will be great. When it goes to the complete market, it will be all different. So that's again tough. So we need to have a holistic view of how customer will look into it, what kind of situation the product will go in. The real world scenarios are entirely different than what you build as a proof of concept. The proof of concept to MVP to the deployment is a lot of change. So we need to understand that, and that needs a real bit of experience, and most importantly, architecting it to that level needs experience, and there is where we will be able to successfully meet it. Others can probably comment on it if I'm right.
Sir, actually, that's absolutely right, whatever you said. I would like to add this thing that whenever we're making a model or deploying it, so we actually test it, right? So testing involves testing it also on the edge cases, the extreme situations that can actually occur. So those can actually vary when the product is launched into the market. So when it goes to the actual client base or the customers or into the market, so the variety of data can differ. The model, sorry, the data that it has been trained on, what has been trained to work upon, can differ from what actually the scenario is. Like if we talk about the driverless cars, the Tesla cars. So whatever data they have been trained upon in a country like ours, let's say, uh, the cars would actually face a very different situation every now and then. So that's where I won't say it's a problem, but the team should always be ready and should be handy to face such situations and with possible solutions as well. That what can happen. So we need to imagine a lot of different situations as well while training our data, while preparing the model. So that's a difference as well.
Okay, thank you for that insightful response, sir.
We have another questions from the audience for Dr. Sriram Vasudevan sir. Many people hear terms like LLMs, RAGs, and AI agents. In simple terms, how do these pieces fit together in a real AI system?
Was the question directed to me? I was lost in between.
So, sir,
Can you please repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Many people hear the terms like LLMs, RAGs, and AI agents. In simple terms, how do these pieces fit together in a real AI systems?
Right. It depends on the requirement that you are going to work on. So LLMs, I will further go deeper into it. The LLMs are not the ones that are required everywhere. So we need not go with LLMs for all the applications. So SLMs can be really helpful. VLMs can be helpful. So depending on what application you are building, I need to really go deeper into the architectural basis of it to understand whether it's a RAG solution or what it is. So the question is kind of unclear here. Based on the requirement, we will have to fit in what is going to be appropriate for it to build it further. And coming to agent part of it, as Vivek said and few other speakers as well here said, it is not agents always mindset that's to be completely dropped. Agent is a fancy term right now. It's like Surya Kumar Yadav's sixes. So we get so excited when we talk about agents every day. That's not the case. Agents need not be there if it is not required. So let's not push agents into everything because they could prove very, very expensive. They could prove troublesome as well at times if the autonomy levels are above 3, 4. If it goes, it can do things on its own, and we might be out of control as well. So it depends absolutely on the solution that you are building. So we have to be careful choosing that. That's the way I can put it forward.
Thank you, sir. That was very insightful.
Thank you.
The following question from the audience is addressed to Ms. Anuradha ma'am. From a product perspective, how do you decide whether a problem actually needs AI or if traditional software is enough?
Okay, thanks for that question. Traditional software prevailed even long before. Right now, what we use is purely for analysis. We use this to have a fast Q&A structured on reasoning. So right now, where we are working with the product is purely on grounds of where we can see accuracy in terms of outputs. With the vast data that we have, with the insights that the telematics give, how can we map both of these to bring the right outcomes for the client or for the customer or for the end user? Here, we are not, what was happening earlier was much different compared to how it is happening now. A simple example is we needed 3 analysts to sit and work on a certain data. Now, one person is good enough to work and give meaningful insight with the help of a co-pilot or a simple AI analyst, if I may say so, because I don't want to use the term agent. Now I've heard enough from everyone to understand that that should be refrained. So yes, this is where we are seeing a huge difference. Software was always there, but now it's more meaningful, it's insightful. Customers rely on our inputs every day morning to know where the shipments and freight movements are. They take decisions based on our insights. So that particularly decision making has changed.
Thank you for your valuable thoughts.
We have a question from the audience that I would like to put forward to the entire panel. What do industry leaders look for in a candidate while hiring?
Who wants to take it up? Can I? Okay. Since I did not get any reply, I'll take it as I'm selected there. I'll go ahead with that. The first and foremost thing, the technical agility. Not everything will be known to everybody because the terms, agents, all these observability, explainability, agents, LLMs, SLMs. How long have you been hearing this for? Maybe 3 years, 4 years. If we are right, for the past 4 years, we have been into this deeper. And the agents past 6, 7 months, I think we are talking more than any time. So the skill set of the candidates is okay. They need not know everything, but attitude is what we always look at. And most importantly, whichever interviews I am doing, many of the interviewers whom I am looking at also as my friends, they all concur with this. They look at if this candidate has got the ability to learn faster. If at all they are okay in the fundamentals, I think we are okay with it. If they are ready and if they are agile enough to learn, if they are flexible enough to accept new things, that's okay. And above all this, over and above all this, the team working ability is something amazingly important. And nowadays, we are also asking for this, which AI tool are you using? How do you use it in your day-to-day work that you have done? Can you give me an example, sort of things that we are asking to just understand how much concurrence does he have with respect to the available tools? So the awareness of AI, the fundamental and the foundational skill set in other areas, and the interest and the curiosity with right attitude is the mix that we all anticipate. Maybe if I miss something, others can add to it. Of course, yes, communication skill really matters. That's a tail piece.
Yeah, I think you covered most of it. I just have 2 quick points to just add to that. One very important word is keep this in mind. It's called agency. Okay. There are many problems there out in the world. Okay. You just need to send a prompt to solve that problem. We are almost at that stage. But who is going to go and solve that problem will make the entire difference. So agency is your capability, not capability, your interest to solve this problem, which again, sir already mentioned. So if you demonstrate that you have solved some problems, it does not have to be a big problem, but solve some problems, if you can just show that, that is a huge unlock. Have some GitHub's repository, simple ones. Maybe you just used it to filter your system, or maybe just extract the file, whatever. Just solve your own problems, but solve it. That is a very important thing. And second is, like, again, I'll probably this repeating, communication. How you talk to the LLM matters, right? If you go to the LLM and you say, I need a front end which will show me my daily steps, show it in a good format, it is going to create something it feels right. But if you are really good in your communication, you will say, create an front end for me which shows my steps. I am more interested about how it changed day by day, and show me the hourly patterns. Make it in this way, do not make it in this way. Iterate over it. That makes a huge difference. Now, whether it's communicating to a person or to an LLM, it's almost becoming same. So that communication, how do you articulate what you want, is very important. If you cannot do it in one shot, at least iterate. Those are the 2 points I just want to add.
I'll
Thank
spot
you,
an
sir.
ad there. Just
Yes,
one
ma'am.
more thing, because everyone's spoken about everything, which is true. But where I feel the struggle is when we interview even mid management and senior leaders is the problem framing fails. I cannot tell you how much there is a gap, because you must know where AI fits and where automation does. So this is critically very important. And of course, now what Vivek has mentioned, and the previous speaker also mentioned, prompt crafting, evaluating what you are expecting out of that is all a skill which has to be learned, which has to be there. But what is innate to you is understanding how you articulate and frame the problem. If you're unable to frame the problem, I'm sorry to say, but even the LLM or the agent is not going to help you the way you are expecting outcomes to come. And this, actually, to my surprise, I see a lot of mid management people also not able to deliver. So this is one skill which I feel we must learn from right from the day one. Even if it's a small problem, frame it in such a way that the audience, which could have any age group, any skill, or any background, should be able to understand. And I can
Thank
tell you, it
you.
makes it very simple and easy, very simple. And the rest of the skill sets have already been discussed.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you,
I
everyone, for sharing
I
your
would like to
perspectives.
add a single
Mm-hmm.
last point
Yes,
just
sir.
to sum it up. Like in this era of LLMs and auto code generators, yes, you will get all the codes everywhere. It would be able to, like, even if you want to make a single web page, you will get the HTML code, but you won't be able to use it or customize it according to your preference if you do not understand the code. So understanding, do not miss on to that part. Do not miss on to the foundations, because until unless you know the basic, you cannot use that particular thing that the LLM is generating for you. Okay, you might be able to deploy something, but if you want to make changes to it according to your preferences or add something new, you won't be able to understand. So basic foundations are very, very important. And of course, I'm not avoiding the use of GPT and LLMs. They are there to support you all, but do not miss on to foundations. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing your perspective. So I would like to thank to all our distinguished speakers for sharing such valuable insights, and thank you to all our audience for your thoughtful questions and active participation. It has truly been very engaging and informative discussion. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
you.
you, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye-bye.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
it.
Thank you.
And we will be commencing our second session shortly. I'd kindly request all the participants to please remain available and join us for the second session as well. So welcome back everyone. We'll now begin our second session. So it's my pleasure to welcome our speakers for this session. So we have with us Mr. C.V. Gowda sir, an AI technologist with over nearly 20 plus years of experience in analytics, machine learning, and enterprise AI solutions. He currently serves as the Chief Analytics Officer at Empli and has extensive experience building scalable AI systems and leading advanced analytics initiatives across global organizations. Joining him is Mr. Dinesh Kumar sir, a GenAI and MLOps consultant and engineer with over 10 plus years of experience in artificial intelligence. An alumni of IIT Delhi, he has worked on large scale AI systems and helped organizations translate AI capabilities into practical business solutions. I extend a warm welcome to both our speakers and we look forward to an insightful session. Now, I would like to invite Dinesh sir to take the session forward. Thank you, sir.
Hey, hi, good afternoon, everyone. So, thanks for the introduction. So, I'll set up the context for our chat a bit. Like, I'll take 5 minutes to give some overview about the journey of this AI revolution, if we can say it so. So, like 5, 7 years back, even like 4 years back, I would say, when we were thinking about AI or deploying AI in like industry or our product or whatever, it was a very different story. It was a very expert driven angle. Like we need to train models, we need to really dig into so many different technicalities, and then we used to get this model, and then that we would deploy, and then all the things would take care. So it was really, really hard to use AI into products, and that's why like the adoption was super slow. But now, from some time now, these language models have become really, really good. Like everybody would have gotten a flavor of ChatGPT, and for sure, like everybody was using it for their things now. So these language models, I would like to highlight just two very basic aspects of this technology, which basically derives everything in my experience with all the customers. So one thing is these language models are essentially like very large trained neural networks, which are trained on all bunch of data they could get hold of. So it's basically a function which behaves in certain way when you give it input and it gives you output. Sorry for being a little technical, like that's how I normally would want people to understand it, because it is a technology at the end. So it's a function, you give it some input, it gives you output. One very important characteristic is sometimes if you give the same input, the output can be different. So that is one aspect which brings a lot of drama into usage of this technology. And second important feature is, so suppose I and CV, we both are using this for our use case. So I need to give my input and CV needs to give his input, but we are giving it to the same model and it gives us the output. So what really breaks it apart is what is our input, like what is my input, what is CV's input. So by input, people understand prompt better. So it's basically a prompt. So I need to give a prompt in a certain way that it gives me an output. So this prompt construction becomes a really engineering marvel if you want to use this technique. So just to give an example, suppose you are a person who has to decide something in a manufacturing plant, that, okay, should we manufacture this more this year or not? So to make these kind of decisions, you would need bunch of information, like how was our marketing effort last year? Did we achieve what we wanted? What were the operational issues? And like all these inputs need to be combined and in certain way, and we need to construct this prompt which we can give to this language model, and then it will give us the decision. So now these two pieces, if you understand, then you can basically think about designing any system. So one is you need to construct this input that needs to go in the language model. And second is this language model behaves a little differently. So for same inputs, it can give different outputs sometimes. So these are like the two central things which we like basically come up again and again once you start delving into these systems more. So setting this as context, I would like to ask CV about how his experiences have been in deploying these LLM solutions, or like if there are some challenges he faced along the way.
Sure. You guys can all hear me, right? It's loud and clear. Just want to confirm.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, great. First, thank you, Dinesh. Thanks, Eduinx, for hosting us. And I think it has been a very interesting journey. I think even prior to the ChatGPT movement, which shook the world, or it made the possibility of any end user trying to imagine the possibilities. Historically, it has been the technical people who decides what is feasible. But the kind of experience that ChatGPT gave, it opened up the imagination of possibilities, which was not even existing prior to that. What was feasible, suddenly overnight, it changed. So whoever already were working could immediately realize that the world pre-ChatGPT or post-ChatGPT is way different than this one. And just a little bit give a context, right? I think I have been working on, I think one of the focus areas for today's discussion is about RAGs as well. And I want to take relatively an examples of how things have changed and evolved in the last couple of years. So even prior to ChatGPT, which was in November 2022, so a couple of years before itself, already a lot of language models have been evolving. So it is not something that it is overnight innovation that we see, but from a mainstream world, it looks like an overnight movement. When ChatGPT got launched, people experienced that what really AI can do, and they could see the possibilities. But prior to that, all these things were happening from the last 10 plus years in a phased way, from image challenge to all the language models. And then, so all of us have been little bit, I think whoever has been working little bit on the semantic search space has been using these things for quite some years, right? So whether how do we bring in semantic search capabilities to the bear instead of text search, which is basically you have some sort of unstructured data, you have already have some databases which could do full text search. From there to how do I get a semantic where it can also understand the language understanding, put it into vector representation, and get those things done. And I think the kind of the possibilities were far more limited. And then suddenly this chat gpt made a difference, or the llm's introduction make a big difference. And it was already demonstrated the overnight, the experience came from Google search kind of expectation to something which is you are able to answer in a second summarized way of answering the questions, and so on. So the first challenge always has been that, okay, how do we shift the customer? And when we started shifting the customers, we are already having some successful deployments with uh, semantic search. Basically, we were one of the few companies who are possibly working on using GPT-2. So we started almost in 2019 itself, saying that how we can generate questions, because technically you can't. We are doing pre-LLM. What could we do with semantic layer with LLM prior to LLMs, and saying that how can we generate questions and use that as a semantic layer for improving the search. And then it worked quite well, and it was definitely showing significant improvement to a traditional full text search kind of things. Okay, so coming to once the RAGs or retrieval augmented generation, typically when you really look at it, right, you could see LangChain was also developing around the same time. I think you can see that the chat gpt and langchain go hand in hand in some sense, right? So if you see the history of langchain, they started somewhere in October of 2022, and prior to that there were a few more libraries who were focused on neural search and all that. So haystack was one of the popular libraries, we have been using that, and so on. So the key thing shifted from that, okay, one is you don't have to do complex things. It looked like as if like when you started, it looked like you have bunch of documents, you chunk the documents, you index it, you get it. So it looked like fairly straightforward. It simplified the complexity of Q&A engine. So basically the whole idea was is this, you just have to run a LangChain, which is basically some maybe 50 lines of code or even less than that if you use the right libraries, and unless you do some complicated stuff, you have a small vector database, you process the documents, and you just put a front end to it, you already have something that it worked well. It works well if you have really have simple like novel like content, your questions are fairly limited, or if it is FAQ like documents. But I think the user expectations are not really like that. When you move to an enterprise environment, the kind of complexities they're looking for, that the problem shifts from not that, okay, you have one document, you have hundreds of documents or maybe hundreds of thousands of documents, and the formats of the content could be very different. Say, for example, you will end up when you're talking to a customer, enterprise customer, right? They'll say that this business unit has all my content repository in SharePoint. And I want to have instead of my SharePoint search is not doing really well, I want to solve it should give me the right answer on this. That's how the customer starts with that. And when you really look at those class of problem statements, these kind of basic approach, that typically what we see as a prototype or a tutorial view of solutions will not cut the ice. You will suddenly start saying that it is not going to work. And you'll see a lot of complexities, whether it is with respect to data, so whether it is the formats, whether it is how you even want to process all the document format, it's not a text format that you start with. You start with a complex layout, so you have to integrate a lot of libraries. Maybe LangChain supports it or some other ingestion framework supports it, but then how you organize that one. Second thing is, you many times people also throw in structured and unstructured together because the customer doesn't really care. They think that it is the job of the RAG pipeline or Q&A system to sort out the issues. It's like I'm dumping my problem. I'm not going to create my headache. To curate the content, what is relevant, what is noisy, what is duplicate, this thing. It's all your headache. You figure out, give me the best answer. Okay. The third thing is the complexity of the content itself. So even if you go to the documents that are within it, right? Even if you take PDF, Word, or anything like that, right? If you take PDF, it is not a simple text content. Okay, so first of all, documents have hierarchies. So, and typically it's not like a novel where it is just a simple text. Even novels also have chapters, but there is a lot less hierarchy within that content. But if you really take any real world document, there is a complex hierarchy. There are tables, there are images, there are charts, and even if you look at the tables within that, you can see that there are fused rows, merged columns, and a complex structure within that. And the way you scrape the content, you are physically losing all the fidelity of the content. Then you are making the downstream system much harder to get the job done. Third thing is, if you have structured content, if you suddenly ingest something that is having a millions of rows, and that's not even proper Excel file or a SQL table kind of equivalent, but then you have to suddenly ingest. How do you really ingest, or do you want to even ingest it, or what is the kind of pros and cons of that, right? Third thing is, what is the complexity of the kind of things you're dealing with, in the sense that when you're asking a question, is it a simple summarization question? Can it be summarized from some a paragraph of a document or a page of a document or something else? Or does it really involves complex reasoning in terms of that I need to get 10 different queries to get the content and then synthesize the response? Or how do I iterate that when the answer is incomplete? How do I really know that the answer itself is correct or not, even before you're entering to the customer or user? How do I build systems and processes and observability to notice that uh, the answers or any system, any agentic or AI or anything that you build, all these problems, it's not specifically restricted to a Q&A system or a RAG pipeline or anything like that. These problems that, okay, how do you really evaluate that what you're getting out is trustworthy, right? Makes a big difference. And that adds all the complexity that one has to think through building any AI powered solution. So unlike traditional system or automation or a workflow where you just move from one step to another step, and you may end up using an LLM to extract layers of information. But when you have to give a trustworthy response, you need to make sure that the the system, the processes from ingestion to retrieval to framing the response and evaluation, everything has to be done, and also with a lot of constraints, whether it could be constraints of the response time, constraints of the user experience, constraints of the giving sufficient evidence that this is the right answer, and also telling that you don't know the answers. And sometimes customers ask things which are unrelated to it and still expecting, because in many times when it happened, when you build a solution and you say that the document is about finance, and suddenly HR will ask questions related to HR on that, and then say that it is not answering and it is not a useful system. So sometimes even the business process to make sure that it is shared with the right audience, set right expectations, and also give messages saying that this is the scope of the solution itself in case they ask something outside, or people will start saying, how is the weather? And then it starts doing a generic chat. Okay, sometimes if you don't have a guardrails, or if you don't put the checks and balances in some forms of this one. So this is just a high level of first order problems that one can see when you want to build a real world system. And it has to move from customer asking a big ask to breaking the devil is always in the details. And then one has to know from a content context, a user experience context, and their constraints, and what technological choices you make through the whole end-to-end life cycle of the design that will make or break a solution. Okay. So any thoughts from your side, Dinesh, from your experience perspective?
Right, you summarized really well. Again, like, so the way people generally see AI is like ChatGPT has made an image of AI that, okay, you just use it and it works for everything. But in experience, like just the way you explained, if you're trying to build any application of AI, like as simple as is this a good weather for me to go outside? Suppose there is some bunch of parameters you collect and then you just want one answer, say it's good weather or bad weather for me to go out. Even such simple applications can be really, really tricky to make. So again, like in the engineering and the system thinking discipline was never this important. If I have to say, if you really want to use AI to do any bunch of things. So
It has
again,
expanded the scope of possibilities drastically, but yeah,
exactly.
but also the thought process behind to engineering to a level that it serves the end goals with high fidelity becomes also important.
That becomes a problem. Yeah, that's the truth. Since there's so much scope, people are thinking so many things, and then with everything, there is this whole plethora of system thinking that has to go together to make it work. Because at the end, these things are very like probability driven. It's like everything is not 100% right in all of this whole workflow. Things are 90% okay, some systems are 80% okay, some systems are like, for example, you have this RAG pipeline where you are ingesting stuff and then you also need to query and get important things out. So there are two steps in between, which again are very like probabilistic in nature. How do you chunk this? That's a decision you have to make basis certain trade-offs. So you decide, okay, for me, recency is more important rather than everything else. So you use a strategy, you keep this in. Just by choosing this strategy, you've made your final answer not 100% accurate. Accuracy would dip. And then querying logic also needs to be decided based on what's important for the use case. So that also brings down the overall answer accuracy down. So in this whole pipeline, you need to make certain decisions which will impact the final answer in some or the other way. So this decision making is again, one way is you learn by experience, and second way is you make a design in which you can monitor these things and then figure out, oh, is this okay? Is this not okay? So I think engineering has become really, really key of this whole thing, that how do you design this in a way that you can somehow deal with the problems that it will create over a period of time, and also the users. So yeah, that's been my experience with building this. So also another thing which I've seen is, so the deployment challenges of LLM applications change with the scale when you deploy them. So initially in your, like for example, you're just trying to build a MVP, so that it's just for like 4 people who are trying to just make a proof of concept that, okay, does this work or not work? Then you deploy this in real world, and then the reality hits that, okay, now 100 people are using it, but somehow I'm not convinced that this is doing good or not doing good. And then when it goes to 1000, the questions become more. So, like, what's your experience in deploying these and the scale intersection which you've observed?
Okay, I think the complexity of problems of scale could be at different dimensions, I would say. One is the number of documents. You could think of that as one of the dimensions, right? It is the volume of information you have to process, which could have redundant information, conflicting information. And second thing is it is the type of content or the complexity of the content, which makes it different. And also the third thing is, let us take examples of cases where it's the same SOP but for different conditions, for example, right? how do you really make sure that for example, if it is suppose an organization is there with 100 countries, offices in 100 countries, right? The HR policies of 100 countries are very different. Okay, how do you really want to solve those problems within that kind of constraints? The second kind of constraints or challenges that you have to do is from whether it is a few set of users, okay, or the profile of the users, are they homogeneous or not so homogeneous? Has to be personalized. Second thing is the number of users, okay, and what kind of this thing. So the way we have to start looking at is that each one of them we need to understand the constraints and the technological feasibility upfront, right? Without that understanding, you will design a system that works somehow, but it's hits and miss in so many places. So secondly, one of the changes compared to traditional software engineering or even pre-thing is that we are heavily dependent on APIs and rate limits. So when you're talking of scale as well, right, whether it is if you have high change of thing, whether your system is able to ingest the documents at that rate. Suppose if you have a million documents and can you process it in a time bound manner, how you can do it? Okay, what is the kind of, it's not just about chunk and index. So many times you have to do a lot of complex processing to extract metadata, tag it, and then sometimes it's not about one vector for one embed this thing. You have to have multiple embeddings for different context and other stuff and all that you need to take care of that. Secondly, from this one is from rate limiting, have you already aligned your business and have the right engagement model, rate limits and all that? Because when you take up with Azure OpenAI or even with Anthropic or anything like that, the default rate limits are so low that suppose if you hit 10, 20 concurrent users, you'll start hitting limits, especially when you have model context, you have big context to process, and you have complex systems which consumes a lot of tokens and frequent calls that happens, right? So the idea here, first we have to make sure that we are already understanding the nuances associated with all these aspects. So first of all, if it is a rate limit, definitely it is an organizational challenge that they have to have a mechanism where they are having multiple instances, sharing, pooling, or whatever, having the highest rate limits possible, and also have a realistic assessment how much tokens it consumes per query. What is the things either by in the trial phase you evaluate, make sure that before you launch to larger audience, you are stress testing, load testing, and not hitting the rate limits, because rate limits can appear in two ways. One is you don't get a response. Second thing is you have latency because it will rise multiple times, and are we designing it to retry or not, or it just throws the first time it is not able to handle it, and so on. And secondly, from the input perspective, how are you design your structures? Is it a linear search versus this thing? Are you doing complex things, and is it an agentic way of solving the problem or a simple way? And it which one choose has to be function of the complexities of the problem statement involved. So I don't think it is always, if you suppose you have a simple FAQ, it's very easy to build the solutions and it is almost near 100% accurate with the current kind of technologies that is available. But the moment you have redundant documents, incorrect documents, you have complex, you suddenly throw in a noisy documents with 100 million rows of CSV and you don't have a ways to guard it. You have documents which are embedded with other things like when you start seeing it, there are so many formats of the documents where one PDF contains Excels within that, and those Excels will have an PDF attachments within. What do you do with such kind of documents? Whether you ignore, whether you process, whether you do it, all those things starts mattering. So those are the kind of things that becomes really practical challenges from a deployment and scale perspective, in my opinion.
Right, right. No, totally aligned. I also faced like when customers are less, like the users of your product are less, you can get by with ignoring few things. And like for example, whether to consider this data or not, sometimes you can be like, okay, we don't use it. Like let's start small, and for these 10 people.
And the accuracy is very good at the small scale and then deteriorates big time. And sometimes we have seen where we start with the glorifying comments or very good comments when you have small data, but suddenly after the pilot, you expose it to 100,000 or more, few 100,000 documents of a SharePoint with all complex arbitrary things and duplications and all that. And they're telling you, we are not getting the same experience now.
Right, right, right. Like this is one of the things in my consulting experience also. Like when somebody comes up with a project proposal that, okay, we want to try out this, we are building this. see if I use like this information on ChatGPT and I ask it, it gives me this, and this is what I really want to somehow get as an experience of this application. But when you try to generalize this experience, that's where whole problem starts coming.
Complexity.
Yeah, that's where the whole complexity kicks in. That okay, maybe this context for him is not important, this context for her is important, and this is important for this. So then you need to really make decisions on the runtime. What is important? What is not important? Is this important in the context? Is this not important in the context? So yeah, I think accuracy with number of users, it's a very different learning game for every like use case in a very unique way, which
Right.
comes up like when we start doing it.
And also, people have implicit expectation that it remembers something about you, it knows something about you. And if the system is not designed to gracefully handle that, for example, if you are from a certain profession or role or something like that, they expected that, okay, either I had a conversation and hence based on that, it should interpret same things. My role is different. Should get different answers from the things. But unless that is already pre-wired into your solutioning, this is not going to happen. So
Definitely.
people have to expect, and also how do we self-learn or get feedbacks to improve the solutions becomes important in the long run.
Right. Yeah, this is another area where I put a lot of energy in explaining people that uh, like it like if you have some context in your head, it doesn't mean the AI model will have that context.
And
AI
AI
model
model is
works
always
in a very,
stateless.
yeah, it's a very, very different thing. It's basically whatever you want, like whatever information you want this to have to make a decision, you need to pass that information. Like there is no other way it works. There's nothing inside this AI which will remember, oh, this is Dinesh, and like next time it will do something for me. I need to tell him or who is Dinesh, what is important, what is not important, and how do you make decision for Dinesh, how do you make decision for this. All of this information has to be really baked into the context and this prompt which we send to LLM, and then it will decide on. So, once we start thinking in these dimensions, we start to see the challenges that can come up. Like, how do we make the systems where all these things can flow in? How do we make the decision system even before making? How do you make context? So all of this needs to be made by somebody like who's actually designing the system. So in your experience, like over period, how has the skill set of people changed in the industry? Like for example, when 5 years back or 7 years back, I was making solutions for natural language. My main skill set was okay,
Busy.
how do you understand semantically how language works and how do I extract this, how do I extract that, then write some logic to combine all of them, get to
Correct.
some. So it was more like a hacky way to reach wherever I want to reach. I was never convinced with the idea. That's why it never worked in a real scenario. Like
Production
it used to
system,
work
or it is a
50%.
narrow use case, it used to work, but not in a generalized use case.
Exactly.
And there are so many misses, but we're still happy that we're doing something complex.
Exactly. And it was super complex. It was not that simple that, oh, you just do it and it will work. It used to take so much effort to,
Iterations.
yeah.
Thank you.
So how in your experience the skill set has changed over
Okay. So I have been in the ML or AI kind of space for last 15 years. Okay. So the way I have seen is that traditionally, if you look at it, I think over time, everything has been called AI or ML or something, whichever gets market attention, right? I think people attach even Excel sheet processing as that market buzzword. Okay. So the idea is what has happened is depending on the different organizations, what is the need, right? I think in the initial years, it may be a lot more focus was on the business intelligence and building certain class of classification models most of the times, right? So I think in a lot of initial years, whether it was through SAS or Python in the last five, means Python has been more like last 10 years. I think prior to that, rarely anybody in the used to use Python as well. So I think that one is the evolution of the skill set. So it was more of statistical modeling, focus on that. And traditionally, I think if I have to compare now who are more generalists, people were more focused in terms of statistics and machine model interpretation and more focus on feature engineering, data engineering. And I think I feel that the older generations who are more than 5 to 10 years more experience in the industry have more sense of uh, data insight, data understanding, processing, what kind of relationships that data to outcomes happen and all that stuff, right? Now, but in the last couple of years, it is like you can see jargons after jargons, but it is more of software engineering around LLM, to be honest. So when I say software engineering around, LLM is your core block, which is the text to text engine. You provide some text, you get some text out, you stitch a process. How do you orchestrate that layer so effectively that you solve any problem statement? Okay, so you can hook up with APIs, it can do hookup, it can do web search, web fetch, it can do a lot of run your commands on your file system, run Python scripts, or any kind of language and all that stuff, or generate code, execute, whatever necessary stuffs, right? So basic engine is that it has moved from uh, a niche skill set, which was more about the whole process of machine learning, from business understanding to data understanding, feature engineering, and maybe I would say significant amount of my effort used to go in terms of feature engineering, model evaluation, process around it, and keep on iterating. And for a small problem, used to take months at times, right? Now that has changed months to hours to days. Okay, and many times you end up getting better quality, but the complexity of the problem statements that you're working on has improved orders of magnitude. What we even considered as impossible that time, now it is a starting point. So people, especially in the unstructured world, prior to that thing, it was more structured world. It was more of supervised and a little bit of unsupervised, or mostly classification problems and some regression problems, but very few unsupervised problems as well. But it is now more in terms of you solve the real world. It is maybe an automation problem statement. It could be a rack kind of problem statement, or solve me for this workflow with a lot of information that is diverse in nature. Operate with the real world systems, not just that, okay, you had a narrow domain earlier. Now the horizon is much broader. There is no boundaries to an AI developer right now. Okay, so, and it was not like right now from only building models or something to you can be anybody right now. It could be full stack developer, app developer, automation engineer. You use low code tools, you use cloud code, or you build anything. So there is no boundaries as such. But I think the core idea, what I've shifted is that the power has shifted to the person who is more creative, who can ask the right questions, okay, and build something out of that. And the hurdle to solve a problem as barrier has come down. Your imaginations differentiates you, and your ability to overcome the challenges by understanding the nuances of the building blocks that you're using, that makes a bigger difference in the current world of things.
Right. Uh, Also, I feel like another challenge which I've faced over and over is like the people who are making these models, the LLM guys like ChatGPT and these guys, they've done so good marketing around AI that it becomes very difficult to show the realistic picture to the other people, like to the product owners.
End users,
Exactly. Like it feels that, oh,
anything
anything
is possible.
this. Yeah, exactly. And then with anything, you start with a like this is another like part of my job when I consult to anybody is they always start with a very broad agenda that, oh, all of this can be solved with AI. And they try to solve all of this with the AI. And
And
then
one in single, not even in phased way at times.
yeah, not even like why can't it be solved? This is what it is, and da da da. And so then you really need to narrow it down to making them convinced that okay, you pick one thing which you want to solve with this. Then you solve it for few people, and then you see how it goes. Because another thing that really people underestimate when things start is like these systems are not cheap. They are like really costly with scale. Like the amount of money you need to pay for API usage if you are using very high-end models or low-end models, that's like climbs exponentially when things start working.
If the
So
number of users is very high, it will start showing. When the number of users are less, it doesn't show up. But if
exactly
you have hundreds of thousands of users or hundreds of thousands of users,
yeah.
it is a multiply. It multiplies like anything. Yeah.
Multiplies like anything. So this is something we ignore in the beginning because things are working, and then when suddenly the usage becomes serious, then the cost becomes also very serious. And then you think about, oh, now what do we do about like bringing this cost down? So, like in your experience, have you faced this scenario like, okay, the cost has suddenly become more, and now what do we do with this? Should we ditch this, then build it again, or like what do we change in this whole system and stuff?
So I think we have not faced that much. Maybe I think the problem comes because the good thing of AI and all that prototyping and initially a good solution, this one, but you'll also have a rough idea of the costs associated with it at different levels, right? If you do what is the cost per query or what is this one, if you have a representative set, it's easier to know, build the envelope. The second thing that what I see is that many times when we are not building and assessing them, right, we may be using brute force or whether we want an optimal context versus this thing, right? We are not optimizing for many things where you can easily cut down the cost by one third, one fourth, one fifth, or something like that. Second thing is it's also this. Many people also don't know how to use caching. Okay, so there is also ways. For example, even by default, I think if you highly use systems and all that, right? How do you really organize the system prompts in such a way that there is no dynamic elements within your system prompt so that the caching happens effectively, so that you reuse and it is more effective both from a latency perspective and it's almost 90% cheaper for the system prompts, right? Sometimes we think the big prompts are the problem, but it is not always the big prompt that is a problem. It is the design of the prompt itself could be an issue. Second thing is, are we breaking down into one big task where you put so many contexts, or you hierarchically solve the problem, saying that first I solve this small problem, then do this thing and all that stuff. And so the question to me, or what I look for when I'm looking for it, right? It's easier to build the envelope. And especially if you know that once it crosses a POC stage, I think we need to really assess that what are the implications. Is the customer willing to pay that price? Okay. And if that is not the case, we need to be clear because, and second thing is the price is relative to what they save. Suppose if it costs per transaction for a complex, let us say it's an RFP generation or evaluation or anything like that. Let us say it costs $2 per one request, let us say. But if the saving is few $100s of time, then it's worth it. Okay. The $2 into multiplied by say 1,000. So even if they cost $20,000 a month, right? But if they can do more things with that one, it's I think one is the relative gain they get out of that. But if you are having a generic Q&A system, for example, which is just on a website, you hook up something, it looks fancy in the beginning, but then suppose you are on a user base of a few 100,000 users, and at least you are hitting some 100,000 queries a day, right? And that cost you few $1,000s a day. Are you willing to pay for that? Because earlier solution was a fixed cost solution. Versus now it is a variable cost solution, which is also on the much higher side. Earlier you would invest it in the upfront. Now you have to pay every month, not only the infrastructure cost, which is already hosting all that, but plus you have to significant changes is in the API cost. So those are the things that one has to do. What is the cost benefit analysis? So I think in case where it helps with the automation and the relative things it brings, even if it costs a lot, but if it is saving hundreds of thousands of dollars or it is substituting human effort, there are many places where I can see that, okay, there are 4 to 10 people dedicated to do a job, okay, for the full year. And some of them are almost costing you $100,000 per annum, or even more than that if you include overhead cost. But if the same effort is simplified to it costs $50,000 an annum because of all this overhead cost, and cut down the effort of the humans by almost 50%, or nobody's even ready to take that because it's mundane or something like that, that definitely it makes sense. So I think even now when we have to take cost, we have to take cost in consideration. It is not just this one. We have to see cost in the context of what else can be saved as well, not just the incremental cost and the business benefits associated with it.
Right. It makes sense. Like the cost comparison, I think before it used to be like, okay, system A versus system B, which is cheaper and how do you use it? Now it's more related to like the business outcome, the cost of doing this thing, how many people are there and what are they doing? If we implement this system, how many would we need and what would be the cost? I think that
And
comparison.
also suddenly they change what was feasible earlier. It was not the pure substitution, right? It is like business process re-engineering as well, saying that earlier many things were not feasible. Either it was cost prohibitive or time to do certain things. Now you are able to take up those which was not feasible earlier.
Not feasible. Yeah, totally. I think it makes sense. So yeah, it was nice talking to you, CV, about all these things. So yeah, I think we open for a Q&A if I'm right.
Sure, sir. Thank you everyone for the insightful discussion. We'll now proceed to a few questions from the audience as well. So, from the first question from the audience is, from a business perspective, how do companies decide whether an AI assistant is actually useful or just a fancy tool?
Okay. So let me give this thing, right. See, everybody wants I'll have a little bit of not diplomatic, a blunt answer in some sense, right? So I think this is an era of marketing world. Okay. Whether you want to do a non-AI solution or AI solution, sometimes they want to brand it as an AI solution. Okay. But under the hood, we have to, the technical team or the whole business team that is involved has to make, I want to segregate the marketing from the real thing. So if something requires a little bit of a simple solutioning, right? Like many times people come because they are finding it difficult to do it, human in the loop and all that stuff, they think it's an AI problem. But many times it is the people who are not technically skilled trying to think that it's an AI problem. Okay. So many times if we can build with the help of AI a script that can do the job, it's no longer an AI problem. And I think we come across so many use cases in our day to day where there is a team of 5-10 people in large organization dedicated to a certain task, which is human intensive because they have to compare, contrast, do certain things in a little bit things, but essentially it is an automation and certain things. So which doesn't need some elements of AI, but more like, okay, at the right places, you have to inject LLM to solve certain class of problems. It may be extraction, harmonization, or something like that. But the rest of the pipeline is almost very straightforward. Okay. But in many other places, if it involves a lot of complex reasoning, you want to do an end-to-end accomplish things. For example, if I want to say that I'm just taking if supply chain and procurement and other stuff, we have been working in that space recently or last couple of years. And if I have to say, people have moved once this thing saying that if a proposal comes, I want to auto-generate a response for this proposal. Okay. Or if there are 100, I float an RFP, and if 100 people or 20 people, this one, I want to have an automated evaluation things. Those definitely need a complex agentic AI to solve those class of problems. But there are also many other places where they want to reconcile, they want to do so many other tasks where the different systems gather some different data, but it's largely automation with some LLMs in the mix, and that has to be understood. And then, so everybody wants to brand it as AI. We have to give them freedom to brand it as AI, but we have to do what is necessary to solve the problem. That's my take.
Right,
Thank
right.
you, sir. Thank you for that insight.
Yeah, I'll add another point to it. It's also like people do like parallel solutioning in many ways. So suppose if some task has to be done, they they do it with people or operations people and set up the whole way. But parallelly, they would start thinking that, okay, is there some piece in it that can be automated? And then they start building softwares to help this already existing like chain of people who are actually doing it to make it happen. And then slowly, idea is that you invest enough time and effort and energy, and you try to automate more and more of whatever task is being done here. So it more or less always starts parallelly. Like hardly anybody comes up with, oh, this is just the AI problem, and like let's do it. Yeah.
Thank you for your perspective, sir.
We have another question from the audience, sir. If a company wants to build an internal AI assistant using its own documents, what should they prepare first before starting?
Okay. So it's not any different from any rack kind of solution, right? So basically, first you need to know what your documents, right? So whether it is your HR documents or onboarding documents or finance related or policies related documents and all that stuff, right? So one step is that, okay, how do you really want to organize that content? And typically they're fairly straightforward if it is small organization. But if it is a large organization, right, of an internal use, then you need to be clear that, okay, are there complexities associated by segregation based on region, departments, roles, and other stuff, right? So the first step is always in terms of how do you really want to organize and tag the content in a way that you are able to, that's your first step. What is the scope of content and how do you really want to organize that thing? Second step is that, okay, is it, what is the complexity of the content? Especially organizational documents are not typically that complex. It's basically, if you have HR policy document, it's a fairly straightforward document. Okay, but the complexity lies in different rules applicable to different conditions and so on. So that's where the nuances has to be factored in at the time of ingestion as well as retrieval, and then taken into account. So you start with the gathering what is the corpus of content, relevant scope, then what is the best way to ingest, and then you build a rack system on top of that, and what kind of experience you want to give to the end user, and do you want to connect it to your end system. For example, you want to apply a leave, whether you want to do certain reimbursement process or something like that, right? Do you want to integrate that processes into that single system, or you just want to leave it as a Q&A system so that it just gives you a link? Okay, if you want to apply a leave, go here. If you want to make a reimbursement or a claim, you go here, and so on.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
And also, like, I suggest them to narrow down a lot. Like, when you're just starting to make this assistant should not be a generic assistant. Otherwise, it would be like people's expectation will be a lot from this and it won't deliver. That's given. So you narrow it down that, okay, maybe this is an assistant who only helps you with HR kind of queries. And then even in that, one specific kind of thing. For example, a very nice tool I saw was like in Swiggy when I was working with them. So after their IPO, they like people had many queries around like how do we get our shares and what is that, and like very specific targeted query towards how does my ESOPs work and how do I get shares and all of that. So they made a bot just for this purpose, that okay, if you have anything related to this, then you come and ask here. It's not a generic assistant. So chances of that becoming success is very high compared to if you day one you decide that okay, I will make an assistant that will solve every problem of the company. That will never happen. So we try to narrow it down, define the scope in a very, very defined way in the beginning, and then we expand slowly.
So thank you for that explanation, sir.
So thank you to our respected speakers
Yeah.
for the valuable perspectives, and to our audience as well for their active participation and thoughtful questions. It has been truly a very insightful discussion. As we come to the end of the session, on behalf of the organizing team, I would like to extend our sincere thanks to all of our experienced speakers and participants for being a part of this event. Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks, everyone.
And all the best to all the students and faculty.